What might those pieces of advice be that, some other early entrepreneurs might like to avoid?
When you have these conversations with people, it may happen where, a transactional relationship may occur when you thought it was a real one. Don't hurt yourself thinking that they're not going to hurt you. It's like protect yourself, if anything. Things will happen, things will occur, and it's okay. It's just move on to the next relationship.
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice. It's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the David Guttman podcast today. I have a wonderful friend and amazing guest on the show today, Moncy Trejo. So nice to have you.
Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to do this with you
I
today.
know. So now you're on the other side instead of just, seeing my content. So full disclosure, you and your amazing company basically do all my post-production work and manage all my social media. So maybe if you don't mind, starting back to, when you were growing up, were your folks entrepreneurs? Did you always know that you wanted to kind of do something on your own?
No, I actually was growing up to be into the actual medical field. So my mom is a nurse and she was just like, Monty, you have to get into the medical field. Either you become a doctor, you become a nurse. That's the most best opportunity you can ever get. So this whole time I went to school to become a physical therapist,
Right.
and it was just not for me.
Yeah.
I did not like the 9 to 5 kind of mentality. I did not like what I was doing. I was working as a physical therapy aide, and I was just like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. My heart's not in it. And if you're in the health space, you really have to have your heart in it in order to help other people. But at some point, it wasn't until Nick actually told me, and Nick is my husband and my partner in the business. He was just like, you're always on social media. You do so well on it. Have you ever considered actually doing that for business and making money there? And it wasn't until that time where I was just like, well, maybe I can give it a shot. We'll see what
Right.
happens. And so he went ahead and just introduced me to his business partner, Chris, who was my first client ever, who's still our client to this day. And it just took off from there. I was just like, this is what the whole entrepreneurial lifestyle is. I like this. I like making my own hours, AKA working 24/7.
Yeah, who knew the 9 to 5 was a piece of cake?
Exactly. I was just like, oh, I didn't know that part.
Well, so how long were you working as a physical therapist before you decided this isn't for me?
So I went to school for 7 years. I changed my major many times. I went from wanting to be an actual MD to a DPT, a doctor in physical therapy. And I was working at the therapy aide, call it, for 3 years. And, therapy aide, it's you do a lot of the cleaning, the laundry, you do all the workout stuff with all the clients and stuff, or the patients, quote unquote. But it just wasn't in it for me. I was not happy. It was just the early mornings. And it was just, I was also working 2 other jobs at the time,
Right.
to pay for school and all that. So it just, my heart was not in it. And I tried programming my mind, saying, no, you're going to be a physical therapist. You're going to become a doctor. You're going to make your parents proud. But I'm pretty sure I made my parents proud doing what I'm doing now compared to
Right.
being a doctor.
Well, so what was the final nail in the coffin in the physical therapy, career?
The final nail in the coffin was, oh man, my hours just kept going down and down and down. Not by them, by me.
Right.
I was just like, oh, I can only work till 3 p.m. I
Right.
can only work till 1 p.m. I can only work 2 hours. So, it's just not in it at this point. But they
Right.
knew it wasn't for me. And they knew I was doing bigger things on social media. And so they were like, whatever's going to work for you. We loved having you here. All the patients loved you. You have a big heart. And I did love it at a point. When I was definitely in it, I did love it. I did enjoy it. But you start something and just you feel when it's not for you anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were doing double duty then. So when you were doing physical therapy, you had started to do some of the stuff on social media?
Yeah. So I
Right.
was actually having 3 jobs at that time when I started the social media aspect too. So I was working as a cocktail server in
Right.
downtown San Diego.
Right.
So those were like the late nights. I was working as a physical therapy aide for like 6-8 hours during the day in the morning. So like 5 a.m. up until like call it 3 p.m. And then during those times where I would have time to go on social media, I would go ahead and focus on social media for the few clients I had at the time that I can handle with that bandwidth.
Sure.
And then once I started realizing that I can start making more money on the social media side of things, and back then it was just social media management. When I was realizing I can do that, I was just like, which job can I let go of? And the therapy aide was the first one to go.
Sure.
Just because the cocktail serving was also, allowing for like more income to come in just because of tips and stuff like that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So going back to, your childhood, because I watched a couple of the podcasts that you've been on. I know you struggle with stuff with your biological dad and stuff like that. Maybe talk a little bit about kind of how you sort of resolve that, right? And kind of how you feel about that now looking back on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't resolved anything with him, but I've resolved it within myself.
Right.
Yeah. So I haven't seen him in call it over 5 years at this point. It's just one of those toxic relationships that it's not good for him and it's not good for me. So it's just best that we both parted ways at this point. For your audience that doesn't know the story, growing up, my biological father left my family when I was 5 years old, came back when I was 13 or 11 years old, and tried to buy my love. And so at that point, I was just like, oh, this is not the kind of relationship I want. This is not like a good, healthy relationship. At such a young age, too, to realize that was pretty big compared to my older brother, who was just like, yes, buy me the PlayStation, buy me the computer, buy me all the things, And at that point, too, I was so connected to my mom also, and just seeing her reaction toward things, too. She never once told me, don't like your dad. He's not good for you. She never said anything like that. But I just instinctively knew that he just wasn't always going to be there.
Right.
He became one of those people where I couldn't rely on as a father. And my stepdad made an appearance. And so when my stepdad came into my life, I knew I can rely on him. I've ran out of gas so many times on the side of the freeway. I can literally count on both my hands how many times that's happened to me. I swear I'm a great driver. But my dad has come and saved my life so many times on the side of the freeway.
Right.
I've put diesel in my car before. I swear I'm a great driver.
It doesn't even fit in. How does that even
I
work?
made it fit. I made it fit. But he's tried siphoning out the diesel out of my car.
Wow.
That is how much of a great father he was. Like he stepped in.
Yeah.
He's the one person I can rely on for anything and everything. He didn't look at me like just someone who came with his new wife or anything like that. Like I became his daughter since day one. And for me, it was super hard to like really let go of those walls just because I've been haunted in the past before. But once that fully came down, it was just like night and day difference. Like I realized I knew what it was to have a dad. What sucks for me was that I didn't have those years of building that relationship, but we're making up for it now.
It's funny. I have an experience that's, different, but there are some parallels. I had a close relationship with my mom until I was in my late 40s. And I haven't talked to my mom now in like 5 years. And
Oh, wow.
5, let me think, maybe longer. And the part that's so strange to me isn't that we don't have a relationship, it's that she doesn't have any relationship with her granddaughter. That's the part that just completely blows my mind. And in a weird way, my situation's even more peculiar because I did have a relationship for decades.
Yeah.
And what I realize is, people do weird things that don't necessarily make sense. And I think you could drive yourself crazy trying to make sense of something instead of being like, hey, you know what? The why doesn't really matter. This isn't working for me, and just leave it at that.
Yeah. No,
So-
there's so much truth to that because I mean, I went crazy trying to think like, why doesn't he want to be my father? what did I do wrong? I'm just 11 years old at this point, you know?
Right.
I'm like, what did we do wrong? Was it something I said? So there was a lot of times where I put the blame on myself. The day though that I put the blame, not necessarily like the blame, but just like the responsibility on him for being the father,
Right.
I'm just like, I felt liberated.
Yeah.
I felt like, I think we're done with this chapter now, you know, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. I feel like, my daughter, I always tell her, like, even if she wanted to take care of me in my older years, there's zero chance I would let that happen. I'm like, that's not a child's job.
No,
Child's job is not to take care of their parent. It's the other way around. That's the deal.
absolutely.
How it's supposed to be. And I know my daughter's wrestled. Like, she's like, why does grandma not want to have a relationship with me? I'm like, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that it's, but the other side of it is my stepmom, my dad and my stepmom have been together now for, I guess, yeah, about 23 years now that I think about it. And she never misses one of my daughter's events. She's always there. And it's just like, you gotta give it up to the people that are like, hey, this, like, we're a family. And, I think that it's funny. People are the same way about friendships too, where they'll hang on to a friendship that's run its course. And people don't like to think about their familial relationships running their course, but sometimes they do.
It
And you
happens.
just gotta let go of it.
Yeah, it happens. But honestly, like, give credit to the people that do step up and
Right.
aren't necessarily blood, but they step in like they are.
Exactly.
It's just like, we got to give it to them for sure.
Yeah. And my thank God, my daughter and my second wife, who's amazing, get along fantastic. And so it makes up for that kind of stuff. But so one of the things I wanted to make sure we talked about today was, you and Nick, husband and wife, only been married, what, a year and a half?
Almost, no, not
Almost
even.
2?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
not even?
barely 6 months.
No, is it really that
Yeah,
recent?
we got married in August of 2024.
I didn't realize it was that recent.
I
Oh
know,
my God. Okay.
very recent, yes.
So how long had you guys work together before you guys got married?
Yeah, so full disclosure, Nick and I have been together for almost 11 years now.
Right.
We got engaged at year 7. We make it very easy, like getting engaged on our anniversary, getting married on our anniversary.
Like a one day to remember.
Yes, one day to remember. But we started working together, call it October 2022.
Okay.
I had scaled my company from like 6 to 7 figures in a matter of like 6 months. And I was doing all the things, wearing all the hats. I had my team, but again, wearing all the hats with all the clients, doing all the things. My foundation was very rocky. He at the time was a real estate broker. So real estate really took a dump.
Yeah.
At that time. And so he was relaxing, watching YouTube videos, becoming a better person, mindset wise and all that. And I'm running around like crazy. I'm like, Nick, I need your help. You are a very analytical person, very OCD, very about the spreadsheets. You're very good at this kind of stuff that I need help with. And he was just like, okay, let me see how I can help and if it's even worth it. And so he came into the business and instantly went to work. I have not seen him get off the laptop or off his phone since then.
Right. How many years ago was that?
That was, call it almost a little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, call it over 2 years ago. But it's been such a beautiful thing. And one of the things that we did say when we first got started was, if this comes in between our relationship at all, we are not working together anymore. Our relationship will come first over the business. I can easily find another business partner, someone else that can just add value to it for sure, or vice versa, But we made very sure and clear that if it became anywhere a negative thing into our relationship, we were going to stop it then and there. If anything, I feel it's strengthened our relationship so far. And I love working with him. I hope he loves working with me. There's a lot of things for sure that I can work on and all that kind of stuff and vice versa. But it's been a beautiful thing to just grow together just because we have the same goals in life. We want to make sure we're both moving forward at every single time. And he's become not only my biggest cheerleader, but my biggest coach too. He's really great at just giving me like the exact feedback I need, the real feedback I need. Like he always asks, do you want the husband answer or do you want the truth?
Like that, actually. I might steal that.
It's actually pretty neat because it's like, okay, like give me the truth, but give me the husband answer too, just to like give me my
Right, right.
flowers a little bit, But it's good feedback, it's the raw, the authentic, just like what exactly I need to hear.
Yeah.
Like I did a presentation last Friday and I didn't feel comfortable because there was no PowerPoint, something I'm used to when I do
Right.
talks. And so it's more like a keynote, just like going off the script and kind of mentality. And it just was the first time for me. So it was something new. And I told him, okay, how did I do? And so he gave me the real response. And I was like, okay, I definitely need to work on this. He was just like, you just need to practice with me or need to practice somewhere
Sure.
else. And I appreciate it. I didn't like hearing it,
Of course.
but I appreciated it,
Right.
and it's just like, he's like, overall, you did great. And my peers also were like, you did amazing. You did so great, whatever. And there was other things that happened during that actual presentation where I got sort of hijacked in a
Right.
sense. But everyone's was applauding it, but I respect his view on things because it's not going to be like the sugar coated kind of response I want to hear.
I'm the same way, but it's funny. Most people, a lot of people say they want real constructive feedback, but I think most people don't.
They
actually.
don't. They're such big liars. I'm just like, you don't
Yeah.
appreciate constructive criticism.
And like you said, no one enjoys hearing, gee, you could have done that better, or gee, you could have done this better. But if you don't do that, then you see it, right? You see people, especially people that are really successful, they're surrounded by yes men, right? And you get the expected result, which is you look like a jackass
Yes.
if you don't have someone in your inner circle that's like, hey, like, let me just give it to you real. And, you can be polite
For sure.
and still give someone constructive feedback.
Yeah, like you don't
But you
have
guys
to
give it to me all the time.
Yeah. And vice versa.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, but it's good. Constructive criticism is great. It's feedback. It makes you grow. It makes you become better. It's nothing bad. Like I'd rather become a better person hearing something. Sure, I didn't really want to hear it, but it's going to make me a better person compared to just staying the same person and then just getting left behind in the times. It's just like, why not work on becoming a better person?
Right.
So, overall, it's great. It's not fun to hear it, sure, but it's going to make you a better person down the line.
One of the things I've been having, I think a lot about, I don't know why. I think a lot about relationships, especially romantic relationships, mostly because I see so few good ones. Like shockingly rare to see people just treat each other well
Mhm.
consistently over an extended period of time. And it's funny, not all, but I would say most of the healthy romantic relationships I know, they work together.
Mhm.
And my working hypothesis is that I think that especially among people that are very successful, if your partner doesn't understand what you do, it's kind of hard to feel like you're on the same team. But if you're working together, that's kind of built into it.
Yeah, it's I actually have a good story about that just to
Sure.
elaborate on it. When I was first starting in the business, I was networking like crazy. I was flying so often, like every other week, if not weekly basis, to grow my network. Because I knew I needed to get into the right rooms at all times, expand my network, get into the rooms with the right people so they knew who I was and create that industry for myself. Nick was always on board with that. He always knew what I needed to do in my business. He knew it was a networking play. He knew that in order for me to grow and scale, I needed to do those things and quote unquote sacrifice a little bit of our time together for the
Mhm.
year to make this better. But overall, and like the big goal for both of us,
Right.
being on the same alignment, being on the same path is so crucial for every single relationship. The thing is, Nick knew I needed to do this. If Nick did not know or didn't feel like it was any benefit to me to be out there networking and traveling like crazy, our relationship probably would have suffered for sure.
Right.
But because he knew and he was on the same alignment path with me, it ended up working out for the best.
Mm. So I'm just imagining, you're an attractive woman, you're dealing in a environment that's largely, I would say mostly male dominated, is probably fair to say.
Very male dominated.
That's got to come with some challenges from time to time. How do you navigate them, and how do you navigate them in a way that, where Nick feels comfortable?
Absolutely. So I'm very grateful that Nick has like no insecurities. Like he knows that I love him and he knows I would never do anything to jeopardize our relationship whatsoever because we're great partners
Right.
in general. And so just having that loyalty and that trust already, that sets the foundation and the tone for everything. Being in the right rooms are very male dominated,
Right.
extremely male dominated. But one of my biggest mentors, without her really knowing, was Jessie Lee. She was an amazing human being. She passed away about a year ago.
Oh, sorry.
Best human ever. Amazing person, amazing soul. She was a firecracker. She owned every single room she walked into by all the men, all the women. She was an attractive force, but she was just like a total business oriented person. She meant business, but in a very refined way, nothing where it's just like boring or anything like that. And she knew how to talk to people. I've looked up to her so much because of that. And I remember one time, I like telling this story because it's changed my life forever. We were all in San Diego. It was like a group of 10 of us. Jessie Lee was there. It was it was couples also, but all the men got up from the table and they went to the bar to talk business.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I just kept saying, I should go up and go talk to them. I want to talk business. I don't want to be talking about the purses and the shoes and all that kind of stuff. Like, I have no interest in this.
Right.
I like it, but I don't want to discuss for 30 minutes about a bag,
Right.
And so I was just like, should I go up? Am I going to be rude? What should I do? As I'm contemplating this in my head, Jessie Lee stands up. She goes to the bar. She doesn't drink. Goes to the bar, starts talking business with all the men. I'm like, I should have done that.
Right.
I just sat here contemplating, what am I going to do? Should I get up? Should I stay? And then at that point, I was just like, I missed my opportunity. I should have done it. And so since then, I make sure to take every single opportunity, whether I'm the only woman in the room or there's multiple women in the room. The fact that I go up there and own it in front of all these men brings that level of respect to me. The fact that I have so much confidence in my industry, whether it's male dominated or not, other men respect that. And women do too.
Right.
There was a time where, I was making new friends and most of them were men and they were like, oh, I can't post you on my story, because you're the only woman in here. And I'm like, that's something you got to fix on your relationship then. There's some insecurities you guys got to fix. I'm not a relationship coach, so I can't really provide that feedback, but that's on you guys. But I love being a powerhouse. I like showing up and just owning it. But as far as like when it comes to our relationship, there's never been an issue as far as like insecurities go. Yeah.
Well, that's great because it's like you can't fix stupid and you can't fix insecurities.
Exactly.
Or it's really hard anyway.
It is. It's really, really hard. Yeah. And it's just having that trust. I mean, Nick's traveled a lot for work too. If I can't make it, he goes by himself.
Right.
It's just having that trust.
Well, it does seem too like, not that there's no overlap. I mean, you're both charming, but there doesn't seem like there's that much overlap in your skill sets, or at least your strengths, I should say it that way. Right.
Yeah.
And so that seems like that would, my experience is that makes for the best partnerships where, you're not stepping on each other's toes. Like who can do the spreadsheet better? Who can who can do the sales call better?
Yeah. So I'm definitely like the face, the visionary, I'm like the creative person when it comes to all that. Like, what can we do next in order to make this bigger? That's one thing we do like overlap on is just like the creativeness as far as like expanding our business. But he's behind the scenes. He's the operations. He's like working on the coding stuff, the back end stuff. If I touch that, I would ruin our business.
Right.
So I know my strengths. He knows his strengths. And there's definitely no overlap on that.
Yeah.
Like I know where to come in and speak and he knows the same as well.
So you guys, I remember just from some of our conversations we've had, over the months that you guys have done some, I know I'm not exactly sure what to call it, coaching, education, mentorship, whatever, but you've done it together. Like I think you took some of William's stuff together. I think I remember you guys saying, maybe talk a little bit about that and what that experience is like. Cause I think that people really underestimate, how doing some of those things together as a couple, especially if you're in business together, but even if you're not, can be so helpful.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've been a part of like many like masterminds, mindset things and all that. But the one that we did with William, God Mode at the time was amazing. Funny enough, we weren't in it together though.
Oh,
it was separate. We had our own separate coaches, but they knew we worked together. So they knew the same exact goals that we had planned. So in a sense, we did have the same coach. they knew where we were as far as alignment went. So they would always refer back to us working together for sure. But as far as mindset goes, we've always done everything separately.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. But because we're so on tune and we know what our goals are, every single thing that we've done has always led to the same goal, the same end result. Yeah.
Right.
It's just he takes it one way just because he learns a different way and he is very proactive in a different way than I am.
Sure.
We've come to realize like we did like the whole disc kind of test and stuff, and I'm very high DI,
Right.
and he's a CS. And so we complement each other very well to create the whole full circle.
Right. Interesting. So, if you go back in time, because you've had your business now for how long?
For 7 years total. Well, working for myself for 7 years, but call exposure as what it is now to this day for like the last 3 years.
And so if you could go back, let's say 3.5 years and, give yourself a few pieces of advice, some pitfalls that you might avoid, what might those pieces of advice be that, some other early entrepreneurs might like to avoid?
Yeah, it's paying attention to who you fully commit to as far as just like transactional over big, like actual relationships. I'm very big on true, authentic relationships. I'm not a fan of transactional relationships. I like becoming friends with people. I like making sure that the relationship grows outside of the business also. And it's not just something where it's just like a client kind of feeling where it's just like, okay, we stop services today, I'm no longer going to talk to you whatsoever.
Right.
And so like for me, it's just like telling my old self then, it's just like when you have these conversations with people, it may happen where, a transactional relationship may occur when you thought it was a real one. Don't like hurt yourself thinking that they're not going to hurt you. It's like protect yourself if anything. Things will happen, things will occur, and it's okay. It's just like, just move on to the next relationship. It's just like, don't overthink the relationship that wasn't there.
So I think about it slightly differently. And if you don't mind,
Absolutely. Yes. I like the feedback. Yes.
And this isn't criticism. It's just my own observations for myself is I actually think all relationships are transactional, but you get to decide what you transact. So
I like that
because you can transact friendship.
Yeah.
You can transact empathy. You can transact money. You can transact time. There's all kinds of things you can transact. And the way I like to think about it is, again, I try to focus on those relationships that are vulnerable and authentic, where it's the broadest set of transactions possible.
Yeah.
I find are the richest relationships where you transact friendship, maybe you transact money, you invest together. I know, even like when I was talking about, which by the way, I believe you're supposed to actually finally receive the equity documents either today or tomorrow. I know it's taking way longer than it's supposed to. But I swear to God, it'll be in your inbox. But anyway, the idea of wanting to transact on multiple levels is how I think about it, because I think that if you got no payback from the relationship, you'd be a fool to continue investing in it.
I just got my mind blown right now. I never thought about it that way.
Right.
And it's so true. Yeah. I guess from my standpoint, it was more like the money kind of transactional part where I was coming from that standpoint, but I never considered it from a different standpoint of like, there's the friendship transaction, there's the money, there's the different kinds of broader transactions you can go about that do create that whole relationship. So no, I do appreciate that feedback. I think that I definitely am going to change my mindset on that for sure.
Well, think about it too. Like, you make investments, and again, you can make investments of time, you can make investments of money, you can make investments in people. And they all have an ROI. They're just not, they're all different.
All different. Yeah. All a risk.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, so maybe talk a little bit about, do you have any people that are sort of active mentors of yours that are actively mentoring you?
Actively mentoring me right now? Yes. So there's a man called Eddie Malouf. He is doing so well for himself in the paid media industry. and also an agency. His agency is called Bad Marketing. Great person to know. We actually introduced you to
Yeah, I
him
remember.
recently. He'll be a guest on the podcast too
Right.
eventually. But great person to know. He's actually opened up so many doors for us, not just within like referrals or like new clients or anything like that, but just how we have ran our agency as well. Previous mentors I've had in the past come from like that business standpoint, which is great to have. But we come from an agency model, which is very different in a sense
Mm-hmm.
compared to like a traditional kind of business.
Right.
He has that agency background though, which, there's a different back end, there's different foundations you need to have, there's different pods, there's different structures as far as like actual employees you need to have. So we have learned a lot from him and his whole like coaching and his
Mm-hmm.
mentorship program as well, but also as like active partners together, which
Right.
is great to see because we've come to realize that we work great together because he's on the paid media side.
Right.
So he's doing all like the, enhancements of like making sure your ad dollars are getting spent well and you have like great click through rates, all the works on that. But because we know everything as far as like the organic side and the personal brand side of like the actual client, when we work together, we create the creatives for it because
Mm-hmm.
we know the personal brand. We
Right.
know how his audience or the client's audience works and
Right.
likes. So we've come to grow like a really good partnership along with him still being an active mentor.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is there anyone that you're actively mentoring?
Not at the time being, but we
Right.
are currently working on something behind the scenes to get out there. This is something that Nick has been pushing me to do for like the last, call it like 6 months. And so more now than ever, he's just like, we need to get started on making sure that you're coaching and mentoring people. I am part of so I do guest speak for like a circle called, or a mentorship called Inner Circle. Every single month, I do like a guest appearance and I talk about content, social media, and podcasting. So I guess there is that,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing else beyond that.
Because the part in, I know you've probably seen this from some of my content, but I definitely have. There's no doubt in my mind I get more from the mentorship I give to other people than they get from me. They might say differently, but I think they're wrong. And it's just that it forces me to think about things in just a fundamentally different way. And so I think it's, even if it's just a little bit of your time that you're carving, it's kind of like tithing, carve out a little bit of your time instead of your money it feels like you're giving back, but in the strangest way, it comes back in spades. It's surprising.
I honestly like it just because it's also like a refresher for everything that we're doing, and it
Right.
also makes you stay on top of like your industry trends. It's just like you always want to be on top of all the things going on in your industry. And so by mentoring someone or coaching someone, you always stay on top of it at all times and you don't stay or fall behind. At least you hope not to fall
Right.
behind.
Right. Well, it's funny because in the trading space where I had come from before, a lot of the people, first of all, there's a bunch of traders who are full of shit and they're just trading marketing accounts and they're not actually traders. They're certainly not good traders. But the people I know who are good traders who also coach, without exception, they tell me that them having to coach and mentor other traders makes them a way better trader. Like it's not even a little bit better. They're like, well, I'm trading live and I'm telling them, their risks are reward and they got to get out of their trade when this happens. And then I don't do it when
Mhm.
I have to do it because,
Yeah.
what kind of role model am I
You
going
got
to
to practice
be?
what you preach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta walk the talk. And I think people really underestimate that. So, well, talk a little bit about kind of where you see, taking your, exposure and,
Yeah.
your business and kind of what your hopes and dreams are there.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of great new things that we're working on behind the scenes. One of the things that we're actually implementing March 1st will be multilingual. So we work with a lot of people who have different communities with different backgrounds as far as different countries. There's communities in the Middle East, there's communities in Latin America, there's communities in Asia. There's all these different communities that we want to tap into. And sometimes those communities and the different cultural backgrounds don't relate with English speaking content.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start creating multilingual content where the client doesn't have to do anything different. They're recording, like we're recording this podcast right here, but what we're going to do behind the scenes is using AI, we're going to start implementing like the lips changing and all that and getting it to that language for that community specifically.
Right.
So that's going to be massive because it's going to open up a whole new door for a community to feel like they're integrated with that person, whether it's through social media content, podcasts, whatever it is, they're just going to build that community there.
Wow.
So that's going to be massive just because there's a lot of people that want the Latin community, but they
Right.
don't know how to speak Spanish. Or there's a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East where there's great opportunities, but they don't know how to speak Arabic.
Right.
So it's just like a lot of the things that we're going to definitely start implementing March 1st to see how that works.
How do you stay on top? I mean, so I would imagine, and part of the reason, I joined with you guys in the first place was, I don't know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to social media and social media management and how to do a hook and, how to do the lower third properly and all the post-production stuff that you guys do. You're like, hey, you need to record a reaction video. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, but there's so many, this is how to do it on TikTok. This is how to do it on X. This is how to do it on Instagram. Like, how do you stay on top of that many different modalities and platforms? It seems impossible to stay on top of all that. How do you guys do that?
That's the beautiful thing about having other employees also, like while they're managing let's use you, for example, while they're managing all your things on social media, on every single platform, I'm also working on the bigger creative stuff. So that means making sure I stay on top of all the trends, making sure I stay on top of all the platforms that's going on there. And we have weekly meetings where we discuss all the new findings, all the new trends. And not even that, it's not just like we wait for that weekly call. It's just like, hey, this is just something new that just started. This is like something Instagram is implementing starting, next week. Like we should stay on top of it. And we tell them like, how can we implement this with your clients?
Mm-hmm.
And so they know all the behind the scenes going on, your audience and all that. So they go back and they're just like, okay, we can definitely do something like this because the audience is going to like it. Or if it doesn't work, don't do it at all.
Right.
So it's just a matter of like us staying on top of it. Social media managers also, they stay on top of all the different trends too. We make sure that they get emails sent to their work emails directly to stay on top of all the different trends, news articles and all that. We set up Google alerts also at all times just to make sure that we stay on top of it at all times too. And also having our partners in the different industries too. It's
Right.
just like, they'll be like, hey, this has been working really great for us.
Right.
Have you guys considered trying it? Or vice versa. We both give and take at that point too. But it's one of those things where like, just like everything else, you want to stay on top of all your trends, whether that's through articles, whether that's on the app directly. And it's also taking a look at what other industry leaders are doing and working for them. And then that way you don't stay behind as well.
So how much of the, in a given month, how much of the 22 business days are you traveling?
I used to be worse.
Right.
I would say traveling wise, I only probably travel like once a month now.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe twice a month here and
Right.
there. Yeah. But before it used to be weekly.
Right.
Yeah. Like I would be like back home for one day, off to the next.
So then, how do you manage sort of your health and your physical and mental health, running a very, let's say, demanding business, a fair amount of travel on top of that.
Yeah.
How do you think about that? And how do you and Nick integrate that into your lives?
Yeah. So one, we're very big on health. We're very big on like the whole Mahav movement going on right now. Like we're big on making America healthy again. And that comes from the food, that comes from the working out, that comes from biohacking, the different kind of protocols that we can do as well. I've been very on top of my hormone and my peptide game. And I'm not trying to endorse anything. I'm not a doctor here, as you guys heard in the beginning of this episode. I am not a doctor, so I'm not endorsing anything, but this is what works for me.
Right.
For the last, call it 4 years, I've been, trying to like figure out my whole hormone panel, my peptide panel, along with working out, along with eating healthier and all that. So finally got to the point where I've realized what peptides work great for me and what hormones I should be at leveled. So I get my blood work done every 6 months and my doctor takes a look at it and we adjust the different hormone panels, what I need to take just to make sure that I'm staying at this like really good basis
Right.
of me performing well. And so like I take like NAD, I
Right.
take like all these different peptides you can think of where it's just like reduces the brain fog also. Cause running a business, you need to stay on top of your game at all times. There's no downtime. Like if there is, you're just wasting missed opportunities right there. Especially at the growing phase that we're at right now too. We got to stay on top of it at all times. And that also includes like how we eat. Nick makes great steak every
Right.
single night with like either sweet potatoes or potatoes. And we're just creatures of habit. We
Right.
repeat the same thing at all times. We also like to eat out. We enjoy. It's like,
Sure.
we call it like 80-20 when it comes
Mhm.
to the food and stuff like that. But, you know, it's just staying on top of it at all times. Working out. I actually finally got back to my workout game. I used to be a power lifter back in the day.
A power lifter. I
A
would not
power
have
lifter,
guessed that.
yes, I know. Small
Would
but
not
mighty,
Would not have
yes.
guessed that at all.
And then I used to be one, and then like I actually injured my back with car accidents. And
So you're a great driver.
it was defensive.
Okay.
It was all rear-ended car accidents. It was defensive. But it ended up messing up my back for that time being. And so I got scared lifting heavy again. So I just started, you know, lifting like bodybuilding kind of movements and stuff. But more now than recently, I'm back to like building my strength, building my muscle back, especially with all like the hormones and peptides I'm taking. Like it's definitely going to facilitate that. But also like I'm trying to become like someone also that's well-rounded. So I'm taking like Pilates classes and
Mm.
stuff, just opening up that kind of realm too.
How long have you been doing the panels and all of that? Is that like just over the last couple of years, or how long have you been doing
Call
that?
it like 4 or 5 years now.
That long?
Yeah. And I actually went through a series of doctors. So the first doctor I had, great people to work with, but they were just not aggressive with it. It was just like taking their sweet time. And I'm like, let's just get straight to the point.
Right.
Like, let's go there right away. So I actually ended up changing another doctor, and they were more aggressive for sure. But at some point, I was also taking testosterone. My voice started cracking. And I was just like, okay, this is becoming a little too aggressive. Like,
Right.
let's tone it down a little bit. And I actually ended up going with another doctor, and I've found like who I wanted to work with. And I feel like they know what my goals are without jeopardizing anything else. Like my voice cracking.
Right.
Yeah.
It is, honestly, it's one of the most frustrating things for me, just because I've had, you know, almost every experience I've had touching doctors and hospitals has been bad. From misdiagnosis to, you know, both in the, where they misdiagnosed me, you know, from something I didn't have. And then one time I did have something that they misdiagnosed that also almost killed me.
Oh my gosh.
Like my appendix burst and I got peritonitis and I almost died from that. So it's like, so I just try to stay as far away from doctors and hospitals as humanly possible. And I just recently went for an annual physical and I couldn't believe it. The guy was like saying, well, you know, you should maybe be thinking about a statin or something like that. And I'm like, have you done the research on statins? I said, by the way, my cholesterol's well within normal ranges. What are you even talking about? Well, just, you know, you're older now. And I'm like, have you lost your mind? But it's just amazing to me how reckless most medical professionals are.
Oh yeah, completely. And I want to say it's probably more like within like the hospital field, medical professions, where like you go in like primary care doctor, where it's just like you're just another patient.
Right.
You know, it's like they're not taking a look at your full like panel. They're not taking a look at your hormones. They're not taking a look at every single little thing that makes you who you are, whether it's good or bad as far as like the medical side goes. Just because they don't really care. I hate to say it, but they don't care, you know, like I had to go to a specialized doctor that's not necessarily like in a hospital, but has their own private practice for the hormones and the peptides.
Right.
I couldn't go to my primary care doctor because they'd just be like, you're fine. You're 32 years old. You're female. You should be at that.
Right.
No, I shouldn't. Like one of the things I suffered with for many years, and I don't mind talking about this because I feel every single woman goes through this. I was actually having GI issues with constipation.
Right.
I could not use the bathroom for 5, 6, 7 days in a row.
Wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Extremely bad. I went to my primary care doctor so many times and they were like, this is normal for a woman your age. I was like in my 20s at the time. I'm like, this is not normal. Like, this is not like, no, like I talked to other females and they're fine. Like everything's okay. And so they actually ended up sending me to like a physical therapist that specializes in that. They couldn't fix it either. I'm just like, what's going on with me? Like, am I broken? Like, is there something? Is it all the coffee I've drank in my life?
Right.
Like, what's going on? And it wasn't until I got my hormones fixed, my peptides aligned, where I'm just finally feeling normal. I'm like,
Interesting.
oh, look at that. Who would have known? It's just like someone who doesn't specialize in this and they're fixing me right away.
It almost feels like you can almost guarantee that anyone who knows what they're doing doesn't take insurance.
Yes, basically. Yeah, exactly what it is.
Well, it's I remember my wife went to a doctor who basically said she had IBS, and here's this medication you need to be on for the rest of your life.
No.
Right? And she's like, we're not going to have any conversation about diet, not even a conversation. No, diet won't help it at all. Diet fixed it just like that. It was like within weeks.
They're just so big. I mean, thank God for the whole MAHA movement, but the big pharma, it's like, take this medication. Right. Take it for the rest of your life and you'll be fine. It's like, don't worry about the side effects that you get with it. You'll be fine. Don't worry. And it's like, no, I don't want to take medication for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, I'm young. No, I'm not about that. But I'll take peptides and hormones.
Yeah, seriously. So, I mean, I've been on TRT now for a little bit over 10 years now. Is it that long? A little bit less. But I mean, it was a game changer for me. And it's I'm just back to the levels I was at in my, when I was around 30. Yeah. And I sleep better, concentration's better, everything's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I'm really hoping RFK Jr. can make as big an impact as I think he can, because I mean, everything from all the substances that are legal here and banned everywhere else.
Yeah.
And pharmaceutical companies can advertise on TV, which makes absolutely no sense. 2 countries in the world, us and New Zealand, I think are the only 2 that can do that. Like that needs to be banned.
It needs to be banned. And honestly, I was talking about this yesterday with a group of people, when the RFK does come in, I really do hope he changes everything, because even when we go to travel in Mexico, when we eat the foods that we normally eat here, I feel great. I don't feel bloated. I don't feel like I take a look at it and I gain 5 pounds. It's just like, as soon as I inhale what the food smells like here, I feel like I gained 5 pounds, or I'm just instantly bloated. I'm like, there's something wrong going on here.
There's one of the guys in the All In podcast, I forget which one now, but he was saying, I think, they're all obviously super successful and wealthy. And I think he says he spends like 2 months a year in Europe. And he's like, when I come back to the US, I could eat effectively the same foods, like, a hamburger that's this many ounces or whatever, or French fries or whatever. He's like, when I'm there, it's a completely different impact to my body.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do unless I want to be like a Brian Johnson and put every single thing, under a microscope before I ingest it, which most people aren't going to be willing to go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are extremes to it for sure. I do love listening to Brian Johnson. He's great and all that, but that's definitely going to an extreme for sure. I like the 80-20 kind of situation. Yeah.
And I really appreciate the fact that he puts all that stuff out there for free and he shares all of his experience and results. I never watched the Netflix series, but the relationship with his son is really kind of, sweet.
It's
just kind of interesting to see all that. So you're 32, plans to have a family at some point?
Yeah. Or? So it wasn't until we did a trip. It was a surf trip. Nick is an avid surfer. I do not get in the water.
Right.
I'm just there on the shoreline. But it wasn't until we had a surf trip where we saw all the little kids with their fathers surfing on the surfboards and everything. And it was my first selfless act where I was just like, I want that for Nick. I never wanted kids at first.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't want them. I hope we're on the same page with this, which we weren't necessarily, but he likes to say he let gravity do its work. And so when I was just like, I'm actually open to having kids now.
Right.
But within our relationship, we've always taken everything the long road there. We got engaged at 7 years together. We got married at 10 years. We definitely feel the pressure from our parents and from our family and our friends included. They want us to have kids already. Yeah. But I also tell them it takes a village. If you're willing to come in and help take care of the kid, then absolutely we'll have kids right away. But I want to give our relationship being married at least a year.
That's true. It is still pretty new.
Yeah. It's still fairly new, and maybe 2 years, but there is going to come a time where I'm just going to say, if it happens, it happens.
Right.
And it's, I'll let God take the wheel on that, and it's just hopefully it happens when it's supposed to. But if anything, I do feel ready if it were to happen soon.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about your faith.
Yeah, it's actually something new. Not that it's new. I've always believed in God, in a higher power, but I always felt a little bit ashamed to talk about it. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Um, I don't know where it comes from, but this year I set as one of my goals was to become closer to God and share more about it. I do believe everything happens in community and people can help you get there as well. So I started finally going to church. I started reading the Bible, and just to feel more connected with God in that sense. And ever since I started doing that, it's been such a beautiful journey.
Hmm.
Just sharing that I do believe in God, sharing that I go to church, sharing that I read the Bible has just been more eye opening for me and has brought in the right people to me as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's something I'm envious of. Our friend Roger here and I do fellowship, and he's trying to take me under his wing, and I'm trying to be a good student. Sometimes I can't get out of my own head, but it's something that it's funny because it seems like every person put in my path is religious.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, like I said, I was for some reason embarrassed to talk about it.
Right.
And I don't know why. Like I tried going to like the big box churches and all that kind of stuff. And like if it works for everyone else, it should work for me.
Right.
That was not the case. And so I actually ended up going to this one church where I just felt connected and started hanging out with more like people who were more into their faith, and just sharing those experiences with me. And I just felt very connected to that. I think also maybe it's at the time that I'm in right now where I just needed it. Like I needed to be in that path. And so that door opened for me and I just walked right in. And honestly, I love it. I like seeing the messages. I like translating it into what works for me right now. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So I have to imagine, from what little I know, that you must have clients that are incredibly challenging.
Yes.
How do you think about, you know what, we need to fire this client, or
Yeah.
maybe this isn't a client that we should take on? How do
Mhm.
you, is that a process that you and Nick kind of, I would assume, kind of go through together, or?
Yeah, it's definitely something we both considered. We have fired clients in the past just because they're just not on the same alignment as us and stuff. It's not saying that they're horrible or anything, but at some point when things just get too negative and you feel it, it's just not good for everyone. Like
Right.
it's just there's a negative blanket on top of everything. Like if our employees just don't feel happy, they're coming to us with like a lot of like negative feedback or just they don't feel happy. I'm just like, okay, this has been going on for a while. We need to like cut ties with this person.
Mm.
It's just like, it's not so much like the money stance at all. It's the well being of the whole company.
Sure.
It's just like opportunities come, different clients come on board and all that kind of stuff. But if it's not going to be good for the company and for our employees who have to deal with that all the time, we just got to cut ties, and it's just one of those things like it's only happened like twice where we fired people. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm probably your most complicated client. I'm like, you're far from it. You have not experienced like complicated clients until you've experienced this person.
Right.
But it's just a learning lesson. It's just like, and we see it. We know how to like read the room when they're becoming that kind of negative kind of client where we're just like, oh no, this is not going to be good. If someone's always counteracting what we're doing, then it's just like, okay, like if you're going to do this and you're the expert in your field, go ahead. Like maybe you shouldn't work with us,
Right.
There was a client where we worked for a whole year, but there was a contract in place and all that. And we were just like, let's write it out. We'll continue doing what you want us to do for you and all that. Cause we tried doing what we wanted to do. And funny enough, their page did not grow
Right.
at all. And I was just like, we will do what you want us to do,
Mm-hmm.
And so like we give in at some point just so like they feel content and all that. But could have we done a way better job just to grow pages and stuff? Absolutely. But we just, there was a point where we just couldn't come across that communication barrier anymore.
Got it. What about if you have a client that comes to you And I don't know, maybe this doesn't happen, but I'm really just curiosity. You really don't think you could help them because maybe they want to be in front of the camera and they really shouldn't be in front of the camera. I don't mean how they look. I just mean how they are in front of the
Yeah.
camera. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever have situations where like, I really don't think I can help this
Oh
person?
yeah. Me and Nick always say this, like everyone deserves a podcast, but not really everyone deserves a podcast. You know, it's one of those things where like everyone has a story to tell, but
Right.
is it going to get picked up? Are people going to be extremely interested in it? You know, it's just one of those things where, and like we love all people that do want to grow on social media and they want to have a podcast and stuff like that. But when it comes to like with working with us, you know, we really got to sell that person on social media. We really got to do like our best on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we know that there's just not a lot of interest in there, and you know, not trying to belittle anyone
Right.
in any way or form, but we know what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Right.
And so there are times where we do like, you know, we tell them our packages and all that kind of stuff and it just doesn't work out monetary wise. And we're just like, and that's totally fine. I can refer you to someone else and I'll let them deal with that, you know, in
Right.
that situation. But we end up having onboarding calls and we go over the goals. You know, we like, what is your end goal? Like, what do you want from social media? What do you want from your podcast? And when they realize that they don't have a goal really in set, we sort of have them say, maybe I shouldn't do this. You know, so that way it's not us saying it, like, maybe you shouldn't do this.
Right.
They come to that realization themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah. That way it doesn't come from us.
Right.
You know,
Does that happen
so-
often?
No, not really.
No?
Not
Right.
really. Yeah. For the most part, because our business is like 85% referral.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from our partners
Okay.
that like are like, this guy needs to grow his social media, or this guy has paid ads going on, like they need to grow organically, you know, like that kind of stuff. So we don't run across it too often. But it has happened before in the past where they've come to the realization
Right.
that
Right.
maybe, you know, they should work on something else instead.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So what about, you know, how do you think about meaning, purpose? You know, how do you think about that both personally and kind of professionally in your business?
Yeah. So for us, we just want to expand everyone. We like what we like to do is add the microphone to everyone and just like, hey, spread your message, spread your word. You know, it's just like we want to make sure that we're amplifying you at all times and just making you grow. That's the meaning behind exposure. You know, it's just like literally exposing you on all the different platforms to share your story, share your message, because we see the value that you have and you carry. And we want everyone else to see just because we know it's going to benefit other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's our biggest thing, just amplifying other people. And it goes with everyone and myself included. You know, it's just like this year I'm really honing in on like jumping on more stages, getting on more podcasts, like literally practice what I'm preaching
Sure.
just on the whole audience hacking side of things, which
Right.
is a great opportunity for everyone. But for me, like jumping on that this year, I'm like, okay, that's my purpose. Like
Right.
exposure has its purpose, which, you know, we have our goals in alignment for that. I have my own personal goals that I want to accomplish too, which is like getting on more of those stages to become like that authoritative figure in the space, going back
Right.
to like Jesse Lee.
Yeah.
So that's like my main purpose this year for sure. It's just like sharing what I'm capable of and sharing what my company is capable of doing also for other people.
Interesting. Yeah. So I was surprised. I'm a little surprised to hear. I mean, I figured it'd be a reasonably high percentage, but 85% of your customers come from referral.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we do offer great referral fees.
Right.
But it's honestly just the trust that we've built with people over
Right.
time. Like they've experienced it firsthand working with us. It's not like a makeshift company. It's like we have our automation set in place. We have the whole backlogs. We have everything set where it's just fully easy for everyone to work with. It's not back and forth emails. It's not text messages going back and forth all the time. It's literally right there for you, super easy. And we just help you grow and expand from there. People love that. The
Right.
fact that it's so easy, everyone's just like, you got to work with them.
Hmm.
And so they end up referring their friends, their clients, or other people that they know would want to work with us for sure.
Sure. Because I know like my interaction with you guys is always direct. I don't have like someone that works for me that,
And that's what we love
approves.
doing. Yeah. I love building the relationships because I love having that interaction with you.
But I would think with some of the larger folks that, probably do have teams
Mhm.
that are, managing their stuff, is it harder to, connect to the voice of that person just because there's sort of an intermediary, or not really?
Yes and no. There's some instances where like their creative directors and stuff like that, like they'd get in the way from
Hmm.
what we want to like really do to like really push the envelope and like have them grow a little bit. But then there's also creative directors where they know where we stand and what the services are. And they're just like, we want to take you guys, like, let you guys take the reins and like
Mm.
just let us grow. It's just like, if that's the tone and language you guys see for us, let's run with it.
Right.
But then, yeah, of course, there's other bigger companies out there that, the creative directors or their whole team, there's parameters we have to, work within and stuff like that, which is completely fine. It's just how can we then amplify within those parameters? So for us, it's just like changing our mindset of like, okay, we do this normally, but how can we change it to fit within these walls?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, let me just give a little tiny infomercial for you guys here myself. You guys have just really been able, because I had the idea of doing something like this for a while. Obviously, Roger was really pushing me to do it, and so was my wife. And I just like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, let me get serious about it, and let me actually do it professionally. And just again, I think it's fine to be bad at things, but you can't think you're good at things you're bad at. And
Mhm.
so just, hey, you know what? Leave this to the professionals, and you guys are the professionals. Where can people find you? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on every single social platform, but I'm mostly on Instagram. You can find me at Moncy CMB. And then on my website, www.exposure-dm.com, you can fill out a opt-in form right there and just get connected with us through there.
Well, Monsi, thanks for everything, and also thanks for coming on the pod.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to join you on the podcast today.
Absolutely.